There's this idea that every small town, especially the really pretty ones, carries a secret history.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens when that history involves a murder, a presumed suicide, and a young woman who decides, 5 years too late, that she's the only one who can dig up the truth?
That's the classic setup. But Holly Jackson's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder takes that familiar framework and really anchors it in our modern, true crime-obsessed world.
It really does.
The novel, AGGTM as fans call it, resonated so powerfully because it speaks to this very specific cultural moment. Today, we're doing a deep dive into its structure, its themes, and the surprising real-world context that fueled it.
Right. Our mission here is to give you a really thorough but quick understanding of why this young adult mystery just exploded into a global phenomenon.
And it really did explode.
Okay, so let's unpack this. This book landed right at a time when the whole idea of the armchair investigator was totally mainstream.
Yeah, you're talking about the mid-2010s?
Exactly. That whole cultural wave from shows like The Jinx, Making a Murderer, and, of course, the podcast Serial.
You can't overstate the importance of Serial. Those narratives didn't just tell stories. They gave the audience permission to be part of the investigation.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, that trend just set the stage perfectly for Jackson. Before that true crime boom, crime fiction often felt like this closed-off puzzle box. You had a brilliant detective who solves everything off-screen, basically.
And you just wait for the big reveal at the end.
Exactly. But post-Serial, there was this huge demand for fiction that felt more grounded, evidence-based. People wanted the interview transcripts, the documents, the raw materials.
That desire for authenticity is what makes the protagonist, Pip, so compelling. And it's why the book's structure works so well. But before we get to that, let's talk about the author herself, Holly Jackson.
Sure. She grew up in Buckinghamshire, in England, and apparently she started writing really young, like 15. She went on to study creative writing at the University of Nottingham.
So she was serious about it from early on.
Very. And A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, published in 2019, was her debut YA novel. It was just a runaway success, launched a whole series, and now it's being adapted for television.
It really hits that sweet spot, doesn't it? It's young adult, it's a thriller, it's a mystery, it's crime.
All of the above. But what makes it feel so fresh is its specific approach to that central mystery.
Which is set in this small, seemingly quiet town, Little Kilton.
Right. And the plot is laid out right away. 5 years ago, a girl named Andie Bell disappeared. The police decided her boyfriend, Sal Singh, murdered her and then died by suicide.
Case closed. At least that's what the town wants to believe.
That's the key. That assumption is the public lie that drives the whole story. Pip, our protagonist, chooses this cold case for her senior project.
Which is a great premise.
It is, and she's determined to prove that Sal is innocent, which, immediately puts her at odds with the entire town and the official police findings.
And structurally, you mentioned how it taps into that modern true crime fandom. We don't just get a simple third-person story.
No, not at all. You also get Pip's own first-person investigation logs. You get interview transcripts, maps, all these documents.
It feels like you're looking over her shoulder at a case file.
That's the move that elevates it. It mimics that mixed media feel of a true crime documentary. The constant inclusion of her production log makes you, the reader, feel like a co-investigator, sifting through the evidence right alongside her.
Which makes the twists feel earned, not just dropped on you.
Absolutely. And as she digs, she finds the truth. Sal is innocent. The whole thing builds to this huge confrontation with Becca, who is revealed as the person responsible for Andie's death.
So the antagonists are Elliot and Becca.
On paper, yes. But the real antagonist is the town's willful blindness, its desire to just let it lie.
Which brings us right to the novel's literary roots.
Yeah.
Because Pip isn't just some random teenager. She's very intentionally part of this long tradition of detective fiction.
Oh, completely. You can draw a straight line.
Exactly. I mean, when you look at her methods, she's basically a modern-day Sherlock Holmes.
How so?
Well, what makes Holmes so iconic? He operates outside of Scotland Yard. He's the brilliant outsider who sees what the official institutions miss.
And Pip shares that DNA. She rejects the official conclusion. She basically decides that if the police can't or won't provide justice, she will. She uses logic, observation, rule-breaking.
What's like Holmes? She's the outsider correcting the system's failure. And you can't forget Agatha Christie in there either.
Right, with the setting, Christie's mysteries were always in these, secluded, self-contained places, an isolated mansion, a train.
And in this book, Little Kilton is that isolated setting.
That's a perfect comparison. That small town setting guarantees that the killer, or at least the secrets covering up the crime, have to be hiding among people Pip knows. It creates this claustrophobic pressure.
Yeah, the stakes feel so much higher because it's her home.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this idea, the teenager solving the crime the adults missed, that goes way back, right, to the beginnings of YA mystery.
It does. I mean, you're talking about the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew. But what Jackson is doing is part of a really important modern evolution of that.
How's it different?
Well, those older series, they're foundational, but let's be honest, they're filled with some pretty outdated racial and social stereotypes.
Right.
This new wave of YA mysteries, books like The New Girl or The Lies We Tell, they are consciously trying to challenge those old tropes.
And that challenge is so central to this book. The prejudice that Sal and his family faced, the fact that he was so easily blamed, that's not just a plot point.
No, it connects directly to a really specific and, frankly, toxic political context.
Yeah.
This is where the story gets fascinating.
Bridging local crime with global politics.
Exactly. Jackson was writing this novel in London right around the time of the Brexit negotiations.
Oh, okay.
And the source material highlights that anti-immigration sentiment was running incredibly high during that period. This fear of the outsider was everywhere.
So when the police and the local newspaper immediately frame Sal Singh, who comes from an Indian family, as the killer,
Jackson is using this small town to comment on a much bigger societal problem, on scapegoating.
she's showing how that works on a micro level.
Precisely. The novel explores the inverse of that viewpoint. By proving Sal's innocence and showing how quickly negative stereotypes were used to fool a whole town, she's showing that people seen as outsiders are often the most vulnerable.
And the discrimination against Sal is what allowed the real killer to walk free for 5 years.
That's the tragedy. It makes the mystery so much more than a simple whodunit. It's really a commentary on how prejudice can just completely warp a community's sense of truth.
So let's transition into those core themes that hold the whole novel together.
I think there are 4 main pillars. You have justice versus the law, secrets, discrimination, and then the meaning of family.
Let's start with that first one, because it feels like the central question Pip is wrestling with. The difference between true justice and just, the letter of the law.
It is the central question. The source material says that for Pip, seeking justice requires her to think outside of the box, even if it means breaking the rules.
And she breaks a lot of rules. She illegally accesses school records, breaks into houses, lies to people.
She becomes a criminal herself.
Yeah, in her pursuit of justice.
And the book argues that her rule-breaking is completely necessary because of institutional failure. If the police had done their job properly 5 years ago, Pip would just be a normal student.
She wouldn't need a burner phone and a secret investigation.
Exactly. Her choice becomes this powerful argument about who justice is really for. Is it for the institution that wants to close a case, or for the victim's family that deserves the truth?
It's a very modern dilemma, placing moral good over legal good. And that institutional failure connects right to the second theme. Secrets.
Oh yeah, Little Kiln might look perfect, but it's a town where, as the source material puts it, just about everyone is hiding a secret.
The first secret is the big lie about Sal.
Right, but when Pip starts pulling on that thread, she uncovers this whole tapestry of other secrets. People she's known her whole life, teachers, neighbors, are hiding darker things. Drug use, abuse, affairs.
Things that allowed the original crime to be covered up so easily.
Yes. The town's desire to just keep things quiet, to maintain that perfect facade, created the ideal environment for this injustice to just fester.
And that desire to bury the truth brings us back to that third theme. Racism, sexism, and discrimination.
It all connects. The fact that Sal was such an easy suspect tells you everything about the town's underlying bias.
The source material points out something really specific about the local newspaper writer, Stanley.
Yes, that he consistently and pointedly mentioned that Sal was Indian. Even though he was only partially Indian, it's a small detail, but it's so insidious.
He was used to paint him as an outsider, as other.
It shows how easily that kind of bias can be weaponized. It highlights this destructive force of racism because the community accepted this narrative based on his background. It allowed them to avoid looking at the problems hiding within the white privileged families in town.
And that brings us to the final theme, the meaning of family, which is sort of the antidote to all that toxicity.
It really is. Pip's own family is unconventional, but they are so close and supportive.
which is so important for a character who's basically taking on the entire establishment. Her mom remarried after her biological dad died, so her stepfather, Victor, and her brother Josh are of Nigerian heritage.
A detail that's very intentional. This loving, multiracial family stands in stark contrast to all the broken, secretive family she uncovers during her investigation. It shows that family is defined by support and connection, not biology or race.
That's the anchor that lets her take all the risks she has to take.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now that we've covered the big ideas, let's talk about the specific tools Jackson used. What stands out to you as like a key structural detail?
Well, I think the two most memorable symbols are the ones that show her transformation from student to detective. We've already mentioned the production log.
The structural backbone of the book.
Right. It's her obsessive, organized approach. It's what makes her different from the lazy police work that came before.
And the other one.
The burner phone. When Pip goes from using her school email to buying an untraceable phone, that's a huge moment.
That's her crossing a line.
A moral and a legal one. The project is no longer harmless. It's a serious, dangerous, underground investigation now. It's life or death.
Speaking of dedication, I read a pretty fascinating detail about the author's own process. Holly Jackson's #1 piece of writing advice is, surprisingly, to get more sleep.
Really? That's not what you usually hear from successful authors.
I know. She says she aims for 9.5 hours a night when she's deep in a book.
Wow. But I guess it makes sense. You can't build a mystery with that many moving parts if you're exhausted. You need that clarity.
A good reminder for all of us. And she also shared this great little tidbit from her research.
Yeah.
She learned that eating charcoal can help counteract the effects of some poisonous berries.
Huh. That's oddly practical. It just shows her commitment to getting the details right, even in a high-drama story.
It does. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've moved way beyond just a plot summary here. We've established that A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is this really modern commentary. It uses that true crime framework to explore real-world issues, institutional failure, prejudice, and the difficulty of finding truth when everyone wants to look the other way.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, the novel uses that classic amateur detective trope, the outsider finding the truth, to really question who gets to administer justice.
Especially when that justice system is influenced by political fear and community secrets.
Right. It's like a call to action wrapped up inside a thriller.
It absolutely is. And that leaves us with one final thought for you to consider. Given that the novel positions Pip as this outsider who succeeds only because she breaks the rules, what inherent risk is Jackson suggesting comes with the pursuit of true justice?
That's a great question.
Does the novel end up endorsing a kind of vigilante action? Or is it just arguing that when the system itself is broken, maybe moral compromise is unavoidable? The book doesn't give you an easy answer, and I think that tension is what makes it stick with you long after you've finished it.